A new high-speed highway M-12 Vostok connecting Moscow and Kazan was put into operation. And it's already being hailed as a landmark event for the entire country. M-12 has become the third longest expressway built in Russia in recent decades and has every chance to become the most important one after its extension to the Urals and Siberia. God be with you. With these words, Vladimir Putin gave a start to traffic on the Moscow-Kazan highway. I thank all specialists, workers, engineers, designers who participated in the construction of this significant transportation highway. I thank you for your hard work, high pace of work and, of course, for completing the construction with a serious advance of schedule, the president said. With the launch of the new expressway, Russia got a truly grandiose transportation complex. The last sections put into operation were the so-called 6th, from Nizhny Novgorod region to Chuvashia and 8th 70 kilometers to Kazan stages of the highway. Highway M-12 Vostok is 810 kilometers long, more than 4 lanes in both directions, with a dividing strip between them and corresponds to the first level of highways. It will reduce the travel time from Moscow to Kazan from 12 to 6.5 hours, and this is far from its only purpose. What are the technical characteristics of the M-12 highway? The highway bypasses all the cities located along its route, has no intersections along its entire length. All intersections with other highways are equipped with multi-level interchanges. More than 60 eco-crossings have been built for animal migration. The infrastructure to serve motorists is still somewhat behind the construction of the roadway. However, in the near future, gas stations, tire repair stations, mini-hotels and snack bars will be installed every 50 to 80 kilometers of the highway. Many of them are already under construction. In particular, during those 80 kilometers that the highway in its current form runs through the territory of Tatarstan, 6 interchanges have already been built at the intersection with the main roads. It is planned to open 6 multifunctional zones in the format, first rest, then refuel, near them. In these recreation areas will organize playgrounds and sports grounds, food courts, build supermarkets, open pharmacies, mother and child rooms, as well as laundries. There will be 34 such multifunctional zones along the entire highway from Moscow to Kazan. A number of them are already operational. M-12 crosses many rivers along its length. 4 of the most significant bridges. Cable-stayed bridge over the Oku River linking Vladimir and Nizhny Novgorod regions near Murom. A bridge over the Sura River connecting Nizhny Novgorod region and Chuvashia. There are also bridges across the Svyaga River and across the Volga River in Tatarstan. The last bridge is the largest. Its length reaches 3,362 meters. In general, this is the most complicated and expensive engineering facility on the entire Moscow-Kazan highway. The total weight of the bridge steel structure is 45,000 tons. Now for a little bit of construction history and perspective. At the end of the 1990s, Russia saw a noticeable growth in the passenger car fleet. This not only increased the pressure on existing roads, but also put the task of qualitative improvement of the road network on the agenda. It became clear that new highways needed to be built at the highest technical level. The concept of toll roads has been adopted to attract private capital to build such roads. It could only be introduced if there was a duplicate-free plot. The first such highway was the federal highway N4DON leading from Moscow to the Krasnodar region. The first toll section of 20 kilometers was opened back in 1999. Now on the M4 Don highway there are 11 such sections with a total length of 682 kilometers. In 2013, the first section of the M1 Belarus highway was put into operation. It was supposed to gradually build a toll alternative to the East 30 road, which would allow motor tourists going to Europe to get to Belarus with more comfort and less time. However, for the understandable reasons of deteriorating relations with the EU, priorities have been reprioritized. The construction of the highway did not continue. The situation with the federal highway M3 Ukraine is also complicated. Former name Kievskoy Highway, it was also planned for large-scale reconstruction, which also had to be postponed indefinitely due to the deterioration of relations with Ukraine. The M11 Neva Highway connected Moscow with St. Petersburg. The first tolled section in it appeared in 2014. Now its length is 669 kilometers, and it allows you to get to the northern capital in 5.5 hours, instead of the previous 9 hours on the existing free roads. In 2024 the highway should be finally completed following the construction of the northern bypass of Tver. The M12 highway is the 5th of the planned routes and the 3rd of the constructed routes. It began to be thought about in practical terms after Russia joined the Chinese Belt and Road Project in 2015. As a result, the concept of the Moscow-Kazan-Siberia Western China Transport Corridor or wider Europe-Western China was formed. The task to implement the first stage of the creation of this transport corridor of the Moscow-Kazan high-speed road construction in 2018 was set by Vladimir Putin in his instruction on national goals and strategic objectives of the development of the Russian Federation for the period until 2024. By 2020, the highway project was ready. According to it, the highway was expected to open in 2027. However, the pandemic that began resulted in a decrease in automobile traffic. Talks have begun about postponing the start of construction until after construction to minimize investor risk. The Russian authorities, on the contrary, showed political will and not only did not delay the implementation of the project, but insisted on accelerating the work. In 2021-2022, the construction of the highway was carried out simultaneously on several sections at once. In September 2023, the highway was opened up to Arzamas. The launch of the bridge across the Volga River in the last section of the highway in Tatarstan does not mean the end of development work. On November 1, the head of the government Mikhail Mishustin signed a decree providing for the extension of the M-12 highway to Yekaterinburg and further to Tyumen. Along the way, it was renamed into the federal highway M-12 Vostok. Putin spoke about further plans back in February 2023 in his address to the Federal Assembly. To quote, "It has already been decided to extend the Moscow-Kazan expressway to Yekaterinburg, Chelyabinsk and Tyumen, and in the future to Irkutsk and Vladivostok, with access to Kazakhstan, Mongolia and China, which will significantly expand our economic ties with Southeast Asian markets." Now about the effect of the vacation of the M-12 Moscow-Kazan section. At the moment, the final point of the Tatarstan highway. The region has high hopes for the launch of the new expressway. With the commissioning of the highway, Kazan will once again confirm its role as a place between east and west. The new road will have an effect on the economy of the towns near it, opening up new opportunities. The opening of M-12 will attract an additional 1 million tourists a year to Kazan. The new road will change the face of many of our towns. In Tatarstan, the highway passes through several towns, including Mendelayevsk and Chistopol, one of two historical settlements of federal significance located in the Republic. By the way, it has its own Kremlin, which served as a defense fortress in the times of the Kazan Khanate. On the way you can stop by the city of Bulgar to see the monument of Islamic architecture ruins of Bulgar Fortress, built in the 8th century. The new highway will connect the largest regional centers and agglomerations of the Moscow, Vladimir and Nizhny Novgorod regions, the republics of Chuvashia and Tatarstan. The network of high-speed highways of the European part of Russia M11 Neva, M1 Belarus and M4 Don, which will significantly expand the geography of comfortable road trips. Travelers really have a lot to see on the way to Tatarstan. In 85 kilometers from the highway is Nizhny Novgorod with its museums, the Nizhny Novgorod Kremlin and a beautiful embankment. In Arzamas, and it is only about 10 kilometers from the M12, there are 146 historical monuments. From Arzamas to Diveyev is 61 kilometers, and to Sarov 71. Both cities are part of the pilgrimage and tourism cluster. It remains to add that the cost of travel on the highway from Moscow to Kazan for passenger cars will be 4,481 rubles, and when using a transponder even cheaper 3,809 rubles. Now about stitching the country together. The importance of the road is not limited to tourism, any one region or even a few of them. The opening of the M-12 Vostok expressway is a serious epoch-making event for the whole country. Never before in the history of Russia have such large-scale infrastructure projects been built in such a short period of time. The route of the M-12 highway is laid in such a way that it does not pass through megacities and industrial centers, but nevertheless goes through the territories saturated with industrial potential. According to the designer's calculations, along the route there are production clusters where 70% of Russia's automotive industry, 50% of aerospace and defense industry, 40% of metallurgy, 30% of machine building and instrument making, 25% of oil refining, chemistry, petrochemistry and gas chemistry, production of mineral fertilizers, 20% of food production and agriculture are concentrated. For all these industries, the possibility of using the new highway for the transportation of urgent goods promises additional economic benefits. M-12 will make it possible to build new supply chains for various sectors of the domestic industry, including those maximally associated with the automotive industry. For example, gas is located in Nizhny Novgorod and Kamaz in Tatarstan. Some experts believe that the macroeconomic effect will amount to about bridge 2 trillion. As a result, the M-12 highway will make it possible to sew together a huge space of our country from Moscow to the Urals, and taking into account the M11 highway from the Baltic Sea to the Urals and further up to Irkutsk and Vladivostok, thus contributing to the development of territories remote from Europe and economic revitalization on the eastern borders of the country.